everybody, welcome back. Alright, so continuing our lessons on land navigation. If you recall last week we did talk about the lensatic compass. So now we're not going to go into button compasses because those ones are extremely simple. They'll help you go in the right direction, but they're very basic, and you can do just as much with the sun if you just know where the sun sets and rises and sets. So, but today what we're going to be talking about is the baseplate compass, also known as an orienteering compass, a camping compass, a mapping compass. These ones here, I think, are in many ways a lot more useful than the lensatic compass. However, they're not as commonly thought of. But these are the most common compasses out there, if that makes any sense. But one thing about this compass is, and again, we're just going to talk about the parts just so that we do have a further understanding, because how this works is going to become in a few weeks when we start talking about maps and we bring maps into the whole land navigation thing. That's where these parts are going to become important, and I'll go further into the definitions of a lot of the reasons for all of this when we get into the actual using this with maps and stuff. But baseplate compasses, though, one key difference between a baseplate compass and a lensatic compass is that you do have this clear, transparent baseplate. Now, it's clear and transparent because this is designed to be set on top of a map, and so you need to be able to see the map through the base of it. And this one here actually has a magnifying glass on it. A lot of them do, and that actually, if you think about it, that's actually an additional tool that you can use to start a fire. So, but you can use that to help you read like where you're going on a map as well. Now, another thing that a baseplate compass has that others don't is that on the sides here you do have scales. You may have a ruler like this one here. This is inches broken up in 1/16, and then on the top here, well, this side here, you have one of these like little nicks down here equals 24,000 miles, and on this side here, one of these little niches here is 62,500 miles. And so the scales, the maps and the scales there, that's going to help you calculate your distance. That's the reason why you have a ruler as well as the individual scales on it. That's for calculating distance, again, in conjunction with using a map. So now another thing that a baseplate compass is going to have is you're going to have an arrow on here. And on the top here, I don't know how well you can see it, but you do have an actual arrow point, and there's a white dot on it. Now, that right there, that arrow is going to be used to point your compass when you're taking a bearing. So, and when we talk about taking a bearing, that's something that we're going to talk more about when we actually get into the map parts as well. Right now, we're just introducing the compass. So if you don't understand a definition of something, don't worry about that. It's going to come later, but I think that before we start getting into the definitions of a lot of this, we just want to identify the parts, so that way later on, when we're talking about what they do and how they work, it's just going to be a little bit easier for us. So, but you do have that arrow, and that is, of course, the direction that you're taking a bearing. Now, inside here, inside this, there's another arrow, and right now it's pointing up. It's red, and then there's two white dots next to it inside there. I'm not talking about the one in the middle. I'm talking about it's actually on the bevel, the bezel itself here, and that is exactly used to orient your bezel, because as you move it, that arrow will move. So as you move your bezel, the arrow in the center there, that'll move. So that'll help you orient your map. That'll help you orient your compass to your map. All right. Now, another thing on here, I have to go a little bit closer here. Some mapping compasses, such as this one, if you look like right here, these little tiny lines, these little ones here on the inner portion. Those are your that's your declination scale. Now, the declination scale, that's used to pretty much that's used to adjust your declination, and that's something that we'll get into at a later date as well. So if you don't understand what that is right now, don't worry about it. I'm going to explain it, but not right now. That'll come important. It'll come into play later after we talk about something else. So, and then on the outside of the ring, on the outer ring here, you're going to have degrees. Now, the N on the top here, that's going to be 0. And then as you go around, it's going to come around to 360. So you're going to have a ring of degrees on the outer rim of your bezel there. Now, on the inside here, you're going to have index lines. Now, they are inside the bezel, and here you've got lines next to your arrow. So those index lines, those are what you're going to do to get your bearings, to read your bearings. So oh no. Those are not the index lines. This is your index line right here. Your index line is actually the line that connects to the arrow there. The lines inside here, those are your orienting arrows. And those arrows right there, you'll line those up with the map. So when you have the map underneath here, you can see through it, and you'll be able to move this so that you can line up your bearings on the map. So, all right, and then inside here, this one that's moving around here, that's filling around, that's your magnetic needle. So the magnetic needle is always going to point towards magnetic north. And this is a liquid filled dome. This vial here is liquid filled, and that allows your arrow to freely move so that you can get a more accurate readings. And that's pretty much, those are the parts. A lot of them will have a lanyard cord on there. That's useful for a lot of things. But that's pretty much, that's all the components of the base plate compass, the mapping compass, camping compass that we're going to be talking about once we get the map out. And this one here is when we do talk about the maps a lot. When we're talking about maps, we'll be using this compass here. Now, if we're actually talking about hiking and getting out there and we're heading in a particular direction, then, in all honesty, we'll probably switch over to the lensatic compass. Because, as I said, I always recommend having 3 compasses, because if one of them is wrong, then if you only have 2, then you don't know which one is wrong. Because if you have 3 and one of them is wrong, then 2 of them will more than likely be pointing in the right direction and not the wrong direction. But another thing is that each of these compasses does have its own unique, specific purpose. And so, in this one you can, because you do have this arrow here, so you can point that. Okay, I'm going in that direction. You can point the arrow in that direction, and then you can line it up using the rotating bezel. But I think that if you are trying to, again, this one you can just hold. You can put it around your neck, and it's like, okay, we're going that direction right there. And then you can say, okay, so we're going, you line it up, that's north, and so you know that you can follow the arrow, and okay, so that's 50 degrees northwest. Okay, so that's how we're going. 50 degrees towards the northwest. So you can use it that way, but I have found that when you have when you're using the lensatic compass, which I should have brought out with me, but when you're using the cheek method, you can really, because then you can really line it up. And if you know, you can use the the base plate compass to get your bearings, and then you can use the lensatic compass to actually, when you're walking, to keep your bearings straight. So you can use this, but again, everything has its purpose. And so I think that that's why it's good to have not just a lensatic, but also have a base plate compass, because ultimately this one works really well with maps. And when we start getting into maps, this will be the one that we use when we have our map laid out, because that's exactly what it's designed for. So, anyway, so that's pretty much it. That is all the important parts on this compass that you're going to need to know about as we move forward. So, but there you go. So, next week we are going to start bridging the gap between compasses and maps. There's a couple more things we need to talk about before we get the map laid out. But next week we're going to start bridging that gap between compasses and maps. So look forward for you coming back then. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to go ahead and hit that thumbs up on the bottom there, that'd really be a big help. Helps push push it out to more people. And you know, hey, we're getting there. And like I said, the compass is extremely important, but the map with this compass is going to be your best friend if you're trying to get out of a bad situation.